Welcome back to Frank's Model Aviation Workshop. This is episode 4 of the Carl Goldberg Tiger II build series. In this episode, we will be building the fuselage and getting everything ready for the covering job, which I will do in a separate video. So if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel, hit that notification bell, and be sure to like and share my videos. I'd really appreciate it. So let's get started. Okay, to start things off, we have to prepare the firewall, which is these two pieces here. We're going to glue them together. It says to use CA, but I'm going to use 30-minute epoxy. Then I'll put them under a weight and let them set. While that's set and drying, I'm going to go ahead and get the fuselage sides sanded and prepped and get the doublers glued on there. So what I like to do is give the both sides a quick sanding, smooth it out a little bit. And then we'll go ahead and cut these out. This is the laser cut kit, so it's already cut through it. It's going to cut through these little pieces that didn't get cut with the laser. That's what keeps it in the sheet. Then I'll just lightly sand the edges. Okay, this should be exactly the same size. This side here faces front, so you want to make sure you don't glue them together, else you won't know where to glue your landing gear block or center your engine mounts. As you can see, I made a note so I don't mess this up, because here's the side you need to drill your steering block. And I think that's the part for the steering push rod. And there's the line you use to center up your engine mounts. So I've done it before where I've glued them in backwards, so I just made a note here to remind me. I'm going to glue up using 30-minute epoxy, and we'll set a weight on it and let that dry while I prep my fuselage sides and my doublers. And then once the firewall is cured, I'm going to go ahead and get the engine mounted to the mounts and get that all set up. I'm using an Enya 50CX. Should be a pretty good motor for this plane. So I'm just going to eyeball this epoxy. Probably won't need near that much, but I just want to make sure. Shouldn't take too much to get this fuselage done. Might be a fairly short video. But then I'm going to fill in all the divots, all the holes and crevices and cracks, and with balsa filler, and get to covering it. We'll cover the whole plane. I'm going to do it just like the box cover. Okay, I had a subscriber or viewer recommend that I take some table salt and sprinkle it on the glue side, and then when you put these together and put weight on it, they won't slide around on each other. So we'll see if that works. Actually, I can feel it gripping. Might need some more epoxy on there. I think I put too much salt on there. Alright, looks like it ain't moving. Seems like a pretty solid tip. Okay, now I'm just going to lightly sand both sides of the fuselage. Okay, so I got both of my fuselage sides and doublers sanded on both sides. What I like to do is line it up where it says on the plans, where it's got to be. And I like to outline where the doubler is going to go. So when I apply the glue, it's not going to, or at least when I put it on, it'll be where it's supposed to be instead of drifting all over the place. So that's the plan. You always want to like place your stuff where you think it's supposed to go to double check. And always double check it with your instructions. What I like to do is look ahead to see what parts are going to go where, if anything's going to be in the way. So it looks like it's going to be all right. Here's what I was talking about, always double checking yourself. Now, this former is former B, and logic would have you have the B facing upright on the fuselage, facing forward. The plans don't tell you how to orient it, so that's why I placed my doubler, and I went and got B, and you can see these intersections here on this side are further in than up here, so that means it's got to go this way to fit right on the doubler. So that's how that's going to be. I'm glad I checked that, because I would have glued it in with the B facing the other way, but it wouldn't have fit anyway. So like that way, you can tell. That's why I always dry fit everything. You can tell that's not going to fit, but this fits perfectly. So that's something you always want to look for before you glue anything. You want to double check your fitment. I also went and double checked this wing saddle against the wing, and this is perfect to the wing, so I don't want to alter that at all. When I put these doublers on, they're going to go on like that, and as you can see right here, the fuselage extends below this doubler, so I don't want to alter that at all. So normally I would sand that to where it matches nice and neat, so when you put the covering on, it'll be nice and neat. But because this is exact, I'm not going to alter that at all. I'll just work around that. Okay, as you can see, I got my outlines. So I'm going to apply medium CA in that area. Maybe put a little tiny bit of salt in there. I think I put too much on the firewall. We'll see. But just run a decent bead. Okay, I got the doublers setting. We'll let that dry up a little bit. And I'm gonna go down and have some coffee. By the time I'm done there, that firewall should be cured. Then we'll come up and drill the holes in it and glue up the steering wheel block. And then we'll move on to the next step, which is putting the formers in. These Carl Goldberg kits, they go together really fast, so this won't take no time to get finished. Okay, so the firewall is ready to get the holes drilled in, and I'm going to do it on the drill press because, you know, I'm a perfectionist that way. My eyes aren't that good to do it that straight. Got my doublers all done. They're on there where they're supposed to be. And we'll get this all ready to glue the formers in. But first we'll do the drilling. Okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself on this. I need to first mount the engine to the engine stand or engine mount and get that set up to mark my center line or my marks on the firewall, and then drill the 6 or the 9 1/8 inch holes and put 4 blind nuts in where the engine mount goes. So I'll get that set up and we'll do that. I gotta take this muffler off first though. Okay, so according to the plans, from the backing plate to the firewall, the backing plate of the spinner to the firewall is 3 3/4 inches. So I went ahead and marked that on my carpenter square, whatever you call this thing. And I had to make some 1/16 shims to space the mounting part of the motor away so I can get my, what is it, 2 degrees or 3 degrees right thrust. So I'm going to stack this up so the mount is flat on the table and pushed against those shims. And I'm going to look for 3 3/4 inches. And when I get 3 3/4 inches, I'm going to tack glue the engine to the mounts temporarily. Big motor. Might be too big for this. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna have to use something to hold that up. Be nice to have an extra set of hands. All right. I might tack glue that ruler to the table. This is where it takes patience. Just, you know, it'll eventually get done. Okay. I think what I'll do is one side at a time, maybe. I don't think I'm gonna need those shims. I might forego the shims because the way that engine is, it's already butted up against the mount. So what I'll do is I'll put a couple washers in the back side of this mount here on the left side, and that'll give me my right thrust. So I'm just gonna go ahead and tack glue the mounts on. And put a couple washers on this side. I don't know, the lighting looks crappy on this. But that'll give me some right thrust. So I think it's because this engine's on the big side for this plane. But that's fine. I'll just do it that way. It'll make it easier too. I don't have to hold the dang shims in place at the same time I'm trying to tack glue the mount on. So I'm gonna grab my clamps and we'll just clamp it and then do it. Or the big clamps are too big. Let's see. No, that'll work. I'm going to go ahead and clamp this in. Might have to use small clamps. Maybe. Yep, small clamps. Luckily I have a plethora of these things. Just need to get it tacked, that's all. It's gonna be a pain in the butt. Luckily I'm a patient guy. Unfortunately, those clamps aren't gonna work. I'm going to have to do it by hand. I'll do them one at a time. Maybe I'll do this far one first. Oh, that's nice. After about 3 days and fiddling around with this thing, I got my 3 3/4 inches. So that'll work for that. Now I'm going to spend another 2.5 days using my center. I'll show you what I got here. Using this little doohickey, I'll center my holes before I drill them out. That way they'll be nice and centered in the holes for when I screw the screws in there. Okay, I think I got this drilled and lined up properly. The kit marks on that steering block was off by almost 1 hole diameter, so I had to do some geometry and fix that, get it centered. Then it took me a while to get my motor mount centered in there, but they're good. And that hole for the steering rod was off too, because I put the steering block on the hole. And then I put this lined it up, and it wasn't lining up with that hole, the original hole, so I moved the hole in just a little bit. So that's all good now. I'm getting ready to mount or beat in the blind nuts on the back side here, CA them, and bolt the steering block on. Blind nuts installed on the back side. Now I'm going to mount the steering block. I didn't want to film that, the blind nuts being installed, because it's really loud. Alright, so I need 440 by 1/2 inch bolts with washers. See, they're using, instead of the original Goldberg kits, used common head screws, and these are using regular screws, or not regular screws, socket head cap screws with washers. I'll get them all started before I actually tighten them down. That way I know they're gonna line up. Might as well get a Allen wrench while I'm at it. As you can see by the discoloration here, I put some thin CA around that area to fuel proof it, and then I'll thin CA the rest of it before I paint. You want to snug these down, but you don't want to snug them down too far, because those blind nuts are easy to strip. Now I'm going to take some medium CA and permanently mount all that in there. Threads and all. Want to be careful you don't get any CA on your or inside those threaded holes. That's all there is to that, and let that dry. I went ahead and tack glued, or went ahead and mounted the engine mounts to the firewall and tack glued, had to re-tack glue the engine to it. And when that cures up a little bit, I'm going to do my holes using my centering drill. I think it's made by Great Plains. They don't make them anymore, or I think they do. If you're lucky, you can find them on eBay. But that centers your holes in the mounts so that it's easy to line up your screws to mount the engine to the mount. So I'm gonna let that cure for a little bit, and then I'll be right back. So I ran into a dilemma. I have this throttle right here, and if you look, see if I can get a better light, it runs right into the back of that engine mount. So I had to do a little geometry, and I drilled a hole right below the mounting screw. That's where my throttle cable is going to come through. It'll work. Don't look too bad. I drilled it from this side, and it'll line up. So that's like I said, there's always something. That's what makes a modeler a modeler, is to overcome the obstacles that you run into. That's something I couldn't have pre-planned for, because you never know. If I wanted to use this motor, I'm going to have to modify it anyway. So last time I used a NU 53 4-cycle, didn't have that issue, and I don't know if they had the same style mounts. I can't remember, because I had the original Goldberg kit. I think this is the Great Plains version or something. I don't know who did it, but it's the laser cut version, and I've always heard the laser cut versions suck, and so far it ain't too bad. I just had to rearrange some holes and stuff, but we'll continue on. I got that. I'm going to take the engine mounts off and continue on building the fuselage. Okay, so I've been doing my formers and getting these top and bottom pieces in. I lined it up with the plans and it's straight. Now I just gotta make sure it's, perpendicular to the plan, but I wanted to show you where I'm at. Now what you gotta do after you get your rubber bands in, some places, like back here, I'll have to cut out a little bit here to make it square so that fits in there better. This is where the horizontal stabilizer sets in. But anywhere there's a gap, like here, you'll have to tape that before you glue. Everything's got to be placed in, taped, closed, and then you run your glue on all the seams. But that's where I'm at right now. I'm tired tonight, so I'm going to quit for the night, but I'll pick this up again tomorrow, and I'm going to finish this fuselage in this video. So we'll end this one here, and I'll pick it up tomorrow, and we'll get this thing done. So I'm going to go through the fuselage sides and everywhere these plates go. that don't fit, I'm gonna have to square off these, because these sides were CNC machined, so they're not squared off like they would if they were die cut. So I'm gonna go through and square off all these rounded divots, or whatever you want to call them, and get this thing ready to glue up. Now that I've squared off all of those tabs and slots, I'm going to go ahead and go through and line it up with the plan above the top view of the fuselage with some right angles, and I'm going to tape it together square and straight, and then we'll go and glue up the fuselage. Okay, the plans say to put the bottom and top fuselage on, and I got them on and it's all rubber banded. Then it says to glue these side rails on the fuselage, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm only gluing them to the fuselage sides for now until we get all the formers where they're supposed to be. So we'll do that real quick. Using medium CA. I'm going to butt it up against this front area. I'll do the same for this side. Okay, I think as I glue these together, I'm gonna have that hatch taped on, just so I know that it's gonna fit right. Obviously, this is gonna have to be sanded at an angle for the dash. This is going together way different than the old version of the kit. I think I remember taping these all together and gluing it on as an assembly on the old one. Could be wrong though, but that's what I think that's how I did the eaglet. So. Okay, I've got all the formers tacked in square to the top and bottom. I still have to do the sides. I did the sides on the firewall and the second one back to where the wing dowel goes in. So that's basically the gist of it. Then I got to run a bead of glue all along the fuselage length. And it takes a little time. Just take your time and it'll all come together. It's really, I mean, doing this is really boring. I mean, it's all taping and gluing and, you know, it'll be done. I'm going to take that hatch off so I can get the glue joint on this panel. But we'll get all this glued up, and then after that cures, I go back through and put a second fillet in there just to strengthen the glue joints up. And then it's off to sanding and filling and covering. Pretty easy. So basically you just take your, I use these tips on these bottles. They're a little hard to squeeze sometimes, but they make reaching into tight areas easy. But you just take and run a bead on all your joints. You know, just a initial tack bead, and then you go through after that cures and put another bead on there to strengthen it up. And I don't want to glue masking tape in there, so I'll move that. And then I laid a piece of wax paper down so I don't glue the fuselage to my plans. I've done that before. I try to save my plans, even though I'll probably never build another one of these. But you never know, if you crash it or whatever, you got a way of rebuilding it, which I've never really rebuilt any of my crashes. I've crashed a bunch of them. I should, because these kits are getting harder and harder to find, and they're more expensive. They're like gold for some reason. It's just a box of plywood and balsa wood. All right, well that tacks up that. On these tight areas where there's really no way to get in there with the glue, like in this tail section, I just kind of aim that tip down in there and I squeeze a bunch down in and just let it drain down. You can see down in there, you can watch it drain down in. And that's how I glue those. This fuselage is almost glued together. All I gotta do now is the sides of the formers. I'll do that off camera. And then when I come back, we'll be ready to put my blocks in for the wing bolts. Okay, the next step is to glue in the wing hold down blocks into their slots. First, we gotta drill a 5/32 hole, I think it is, and put in that large blind nut in the back side, and then we will epoxy these in place. I will install these blind nuts in the back side because I have this side marked for the hole, so I'm going to make it the back side. Right tool for the right job. I'm going to run some thin CA underneath that just to kind of seal it down a little bit. It's not going to really go anywhere. Be careful you don't get any on the threads. So I marked these with the arrow facing the fuselage because one of these is bigger than the other, but I want it the same distance from the fuselage side to the center of that hold down. So we'll get set up and we'll mount these in just like this. Well, like this. No. That's how they'll be mounted. Both of them will be mounted on. I'll mix up some 30-minute epoxy and we'll get these clamped up. I'm going pretty liberal with this. And I'll flip it over and while holding it, reinforce that glue joint. All right, I don't think they're going anywhere. So as you can see, I liberally spread that epoxy all around that wing hole down and on both sides. We'll let that cure up and then we'll be back to drill for the wing. Line the wing up and drill it. Okay, so I'm at the point where we have to mount the wing and get it all aligned. And I took my long steel rule and I put it on the tip of the tail to the tip of the rear of the wing tip. And I had 38 3/4 on each end, so I taped it securely. And we're getting ready to drill holes through our wing mounting blocks. So I'll set you up so I can get ready to do that. Okay, I double checked my measurements just to be sure. Now I'm going to use a centering deal so I can get my holes drilled straight as a pilot hole, and then I'll go back through with the correct size bit. I don't think it went all the way through anyways. Alright, got my pilot hole. Before I untape the wing, I'm going to glue this disc onto the front where the wing meets up, and that will secure where the wing dowel goes into the wing. Try not to glue the wing dowel to this disc. Problem is, it's stuck in there now. Kind of hard to show this on video. After this is dry, I'll untape the wing and we'll drill the actual holes down through the trailing edge there. So I'm going to do a half step before I get to the 5/32. I'm using a 1/8. And now we'll do 5/32. Now I'm going to try to mount this up. See how it looks. Okay. Okay, there's the fitment on the left side. Fitment on the right side. Looks pretty tight. All right, next up, let's see, what are we doing? Building the belly pan. Sweet. This is basically how the belly pan is going to go on. I'm going to taper this edge here so it'll set down a little nicer on that. And then you have these pieces that go on. This one I'm going to taper a little bit towards the wing. These ones I'll just glue up the way they are. And then after it's all glued together, I'm going to use balsa filler to smooth it all out. We'll set you up now to get to doing that. I'm going to mark where this goes. That'll give me an idea of where to put these pieces. The angle, I mean. Okay. Now, I'm not going to take this down to a point. I'm just make it to where there's less filler that has to go in there. This looks perfect right there. So let's sand some more on it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get this prepped to glue on. I'm just going to put a slight chamfer in this, just on that edge that sets on the wing. And I'm going to try to like go around that fiberglass. That way it'll tighten that joint up. Okay, normally I'd use thin CA to set this, but I'm just going to use medium because I don't want it to glue the wing to the fuselage. want to make sure you don't glue any parts to the fuselage. You're just gluing all this stuff to the wing. And I'm following that line that I made. And you know, any mess ups can be filled with balsa filler, so it's really no big deal whatever happens. Try to do it as perfect as you can get it. Sometimes you can't. I already know what I need to do here. After this glue dries, I'm going to have to sand this to get this to set flat. As you can see, it's raised up a little bit. No big deal. I love it when you get everything set and your finger moves. Really getting close to being done with this thing, that's for sure. Okay, I'll let that set up. Hopefully I didn't glue the wing to the fuselage. Then we'll come back and take it off, do a little bit of finish sanding around there, and we'll be ready to do the filler. So I did a preliminary mock-up of the Tiger 2 just to see how it looks. And I found a few areas that I want to modify, move things around a little bit, just to make it look a little better. So I'll bring you around and show you exactly what I mean. Okay, number one is this area here, where that dorsal fin goes in. It's going to be hard to monocoat this area. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill this in with a piece of 1/8 ply, cut to size, sanded flush. Then I'm going to take this section here and I'm going to sand it flat, just like you would do on the old Carl Goldberg kits, and that way it will glue flush to the top of the fuse, and I'll be able to monocoat this, monocoat that, and it'll be a nice fit, and you won't have I'm not even showing you. All right. So, like I said, I'm gonna sand this flush, fill this area in with 1/8 ply, and make sure it's sanded flush. That way, whenever I monocoat this area and this area, it'll glue nice, and you won't have that gap there. Because there's no way to really, if you were to monocoat this and put that in, you're going to have some area in this area. It's going to be bagged up and saggy looking. Even if you shrink wrap it, you're going to see that it's not a nice finish. You'll see when I get done covering it, it'll look beautiful. Next area that I have to do something with is, got an issue here. I supposed to measure twice and cut once. Apparently, I didn't measure right, so I need to either add a quarter inch shim back here, or move the engine forward on the mount. I ordered a true turn 2 1/4 inch spinner with a flat back plate. So I'm going to take this one off and see where the thrust washer is, you know, the back plate where the propeller goes. See where that lines up with the front of the fuselage. And if I can get a flat, like the true turn spinners, they're flat on the back. If I can get that to at least be 1/8 inch longer, you know, than this. This is like setting way back in. I don't like that. I'll have to. I won't have to move the engine, but if I can, I'm gonna have to move the engine up. And I'm touching here, so I'll have to modify that. Same with the muffler, it's touching. Other than that, so far, that is all I have to modify. I'll do that. Matter of fact, I think I'm gonna, before I even finish gluing these panels in, I'm gonna work on this, see what it looks like. So I'll get you set up and we'll mess around with that. So let's take this spinner off and see what we look like. I really like the Carl Goldberg snap-on spinners, but those things are hard to find, so I'm going to go True Turn this time. True Turn stopped making custom spinners, but they have a stockpile of new old stock stuff that they still have, and they just happen to have a 2 1/4 spinner. So I went ahead and picked one up. Okay, so as you can see, this back plate, or this front part of the engine here, it's just flush with that. So I'm going to have to move that engine forward. just a hair. I may just shim the back instead of re-drilling the mount holes. I was gonna do that, but there's no way I'm gonna be able to move it just up 1/8 of an inch, because it'll be a big wide oval hole for the engine to mount. So I might just do that. Let me find something flat to put against this. I think I might have another spinner back plate that I can use that has a flat back plate. Let me find that and I'll be back. So I found a spinner back plate, and I really don't want it that close to the front of the fuselage. I mean, I could probably get away with it, but I'm thinking I'm just gonna shim right there, put an 1/8 inch shims back there, you know, with light ply or something, or I don't know, whatever I can find. But that's just a little too close to the fuse. I mean, it wouldn't look bad, but I just like to have like 1/8 of an inch out. And let's see what the drawing looks like. See there, the drawing has it like that, maybe even a little more than a 1/16. That's about 1/8, I think. So I'm gonna make sure I have that 1/8 inch. So I might have to even buy longer screws here. We'll see. See what it looks like. There's the 1/8 inch spacers. Got my throttle hole there, if you're wondering what that is. I have to get longer screws, so tomorrow I'll have to get 2 that are 1/8 inch longer and 2 that are 1/4 inch longer to account for my right thrust, because I'm going to throw a couple washers behind behind the left side mount. I'll just put them in behind there. That way I'll get my right thrust. I've done that before on most of my Carl Goldberg kits. But in the meantime, I'm going to paint some 50/50 thin resin, finishing resin, in the engine compartment and the tank compartment, and underneath here, and get it all fuel proofed for when I go to paint. I'm going to find some Krylon Cub Yellow or something that really matches it, and that's what I'm going to paint the inside of this. And then when I get my True Turn spinner, I'm going to prime and paint it Cub Yellow too. So it'll basically almost match the box, except it won't be a snap-on spinner. So anyway, that's going to be it for tonight. I'll get back with you tomorrow after I get my hardware. Okay, the last hobby shop within an hour of my house shut down, and I have no source for hardware. So I had to order some screws, longer screws for the firewall to mount my engine. So this video is already well over an hour and a half. So I'm going to end this now, and we'll just have to finish it up on the next video. I'm going to, off camera though, I'm going to fuel proof my tank compartment and the firewall area where the engine's going to be. So that'll be done and dry by the next video. So if you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified of future episodes. And be sure and like and share my videos. I'd really appreciate it. And if for the new people that are just joining this build, there's the beginning part, the tail and the wing build on my channel. It's all on a playlist. I keep all my builds on playlists so that way it's easy for people to find. So anyway, we'll cut this now and see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. That's better.